Hello Internet, this is Alex from Siberian Mine and welcome to the first episode in our educational series regarding Bitcoin mining. And what better place to start than from the beginning? So sit back and enjoy a simple and concise explanation regarding what Bitcoin mining is. The first thing we need to understand is the difference between centralized and decentralized systems. Both types need storage capacity in order to host the service and processing power in order to fulfill new requests, but each has a different way of doing it. Centralized systems like Facebook or Google run on private code, which is not that transparent, and we need to trust that it does what it was designed to do and not invade our privacy or other such issues. These services also run on private servers that provide the storage capacity and processing power needed, and the only ones that have access to the servers are the company employees. Centralized systems also have clear ownership, and decisions regarding about how the system functions are made through a system of authority. On the other hand, we have decentralized systems like Bitcoin, which operates in a whole different way. First of all, the code is open source, and anyone with a technical know-how can audit the code and make sure it does what it promises to do, thus eliminating the need for blind trust through transparency. And instead of private servers, the Bitcoin software is a public protocol that runs on the internet, and anyone is free to join the network and provide storage space or processing capacity. Now we are getting to the very cool parts of Bitcoin, because instead of having clear ownership over the system, there is a shared responsibility throughout the network. And instead of having clear authority in charge, we have a system that has rules without rulers, meaning that there is no person or entity in charge of Bitcoin. The only thing that dictates how things run is the code, and everyone has to obey it. The next key ingredient in our Bitcoin cocktail has to do with aligning interests through incentives, in this case token distribution. On the one hand, we have the personal interest of each miner, which is to maximize profit, and on the other hand we have the interests of the network, which focus on security. And these two interests are aligned through the method by which new Bitcoins are distributed. So miners use their equipment and burn a lot of electricity in order to process new Bitcoin transactions and secure the network. This process is called proof of work, and the miners do it because there are considerable profits to be made. All the new Bitcoins that are created are distributed to the miners that do the work. So, unlike a centralized system in which the owner pays for running and securing the network, the Bitcoin network effectively pays for its own security through the native cryptocurrency that is embedded in the system. And this mechanism is designed to be the most profitable for miners when the network operates smoothly. Let's get into more detail about how Bitcoin mining really works. On the one side, mining is a competition. All the miners are in a race to win the right to process the next block of transactions and receive the reward for solving the block. But what does this really mean? In this equation, we have a dance between network nodes and the miners. The nodes provide the storage capacity for the system by hosting the blockchain, and miners provide the processing power needed to validate new blocks of transactions. Every new block of transactions that is created comes with a sort of a cipher that needs to be guessed, and this is where cryptographic hashing comes into play. The equipment used by miners run billions upon billions of hashes per second in order to guess a unique number associated to each block, which is called a nonce. And once this number is guessed, the miner wins the right to process the block and get the reward. The reason behind the system has to do with decentralization and resilience. Because there is guesswork involved, it's impossible to predict which miner will process the next block of transactions and stop this process from happening. But there's another side to mining that we need to discuss, and this side has to do with consensus. Miners need to be in a competition, but nodes have to reach a consensus regarding the state of the network. So how does this exactly work? Nodes create candidate blocks which contain the transactions that need to be processed. These blocks are sent to the miners to be solved. Once a miner finds the correct nonce, it signals to the network that the work is done. Each node makes sure that the proof of work is valid, and if everything is in order, they add it to their copy of the blockchain and propagate it to the other nodes in the network, which also makes sure that the proof of work is valid. Here is where consensus comes in, because each node needs to have the exact same copy of the blockchain. This means that each node node verifies that the miners did the work correctly and there is no foul play at hand. Also, the distributed nature of the Bitcoin blockchain makes it an incredibly resilient way of storing transaction history. So, the consensus between nodes means that all the nodes verify if the proof of work is done correctly, as well as the fact that each node holds and updates the same copy of the blockchain. What is that blockchain, you ask? Well, a blockchain is a database, but a database is not a blockchain, because this type of structure comes with some very interesting and unique characteristics. First of all, a blockchain is the recorded history of every transaction that ever occurred in the network. Every single piece of Bitcoin and every wallet address that has ever been used are stored in the blockchain. So this makes it a sort of database, but unlike traditional databases, the blockchain is distributed, transparent and immutable. It's distributed because each node holds a copy of the blockchain. It's transparent because it publicly stores all the transaction information, and it's immutable because there is a cryptographic link between all the blocks in the blockchain that is practically impossible to undo. But more on this subject in the episode when we'll be discussing the role cryptography plays. So, let's make a summary of what we discussed today. Bitcoin mining is a public, open and decentralized process to which anyone is free to contribute. Miners use the processing power of their machines to validate and store Bitcoin transactions and secure the network against attacks. The key ingredient in this mix is that with each new block of transactions that is processed and linked into the blockchain, new Bitcoins are issued as a reward to the miners that do the work. This means that people use electricity to run hardware that secures the network in order to get new Bitcoins. That concludes today's episode. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and a share. You can also find us on Facebook, Telegram and on SiberianMine.de, where you can check out our offers regarding hosted Bitcoin mining. This has been Alex and thank you for watching.